episode 30, as we end our season 1 and talk about anchoring and integrating some of the key things that have really sat deeply with us over these last 30 episodes and over the course of the last probably 35 weeks.
Yeah, it's been a really awesome ride. When we got to 30, and there's so many great topics that we've discussed, and I loved all the interweaving that has happened. And as we go through each episode, everyone's bringing up things that have come up in other ones, and we're just connecting all the things, which I know you love to do.
I do. And in fact, I love connecting dots. And I read a quote the other day and I couldn't get back to it to reread the quote, but it was something about connecting dots and anchoring in the lessons learned for moving forward. But for the life of me, I couldn't find the quote again. And I'm like, oh, that's okay. I already get all of that, but it's so fun to share when other people have the same ideas and thoughts.
Yes. So. Yeah, it really is. So today we were thinking about maybe talking about this idea of anchoring. We've talked about so many topics. We've talked about fear. We've talked about letting go of the outcome. I could just list them off. It's so cool of how many things, embracing changes. We've talked about asking for help. We've talked about the mind fuck of when you move on from something. And this idea of fear has come up many, many times. And right. so many episodes that have really intertwined, and the personal growth that I know I've experienced as we talk about these things. And I challenge myself each week, right, to dive into this topic and really unfold anything else in my life that's connected to it. It's fun to then think back and figure out ways to anchor in, right? Of what we talked about, anchoring in. So right. Why don't we talk about that? Yeah, let's talk about how do we anchor in some of these things?
Well, and it's as I too dig deeper along the path and on the journey, I have learned that there is so much more depth that comes with the patience, the stillness of anchoring. And so what do we mean by that? We really mean, just like an anchor holds a boat in place in the water, when you anchor in a new idea and a new thought, you really allow it to integrate into your being and into your truth. And if it's something that makes a difference in your world, that sits deeply with, that feels really right. If you don't anchor in, you go with life as it continues to happen every day, it's very easy for that new idea to fade into the background and not become something that fuels you every day, because of the way that our brains work. So anchoring is the constant reminder that it is something you believe in, and it's something that works for you in your truth in those moments. And I know for me, it takes pause and stillness and remembering that it's okay to stop in those moments and stop taking new information in. Just anchor in what you've learned. It can be really tough.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things I'm doing with another friend of mine is we have this challenge this week to write down things, like specific things that have happened in our life and how we've reacted to them, and relate it to something, how we used to react to it. And just that simple task, I've noticed that I myself have changed dramatically how I react to certain things or what thoughts come into my head. It's not so much the outer. I'm not so concerned about what outer thing is happening, more of like, what are all the thoughts that I have to filter through? Because that takes a lot of extra energy. And as I get more comfortable and more peaceful and more content within myself, I notice a very big difference when something big happens, right? Or when something, it could be even kind of small, that could be annoying. Right, Joe, I just had one this morning.
Yes, you did.
It was so funny because she saw how I reacted to it and she goes, oh, Well, you said I was a fauna response, and it wasn't. It was simply a fact that it was someone ran into something of mine. It was a materialistic thing, right? And they feel so bad, whatever. And it's not a big deal. It's a materialistic thing for me, and perhaps that would have caused more. I'm sure a year ago, right? Those little things in our life, right? Someone bumps into your car or something, and you got a dent in it, and I immediately was like, oh, because they feel so bad. And immediately it's not a big deal. It's whatever. It's a materialistic thing. And it's fun to be so, I don't know, just content about life. My life's really good. So there's not much that's going to, make me have a bad day. But it's fun to think about in the moment when something happens. How do you react? And maybe go back and think of how maybe you used to react. And one way to do that is using a friend to ask them, right? And say, did I used to get really stressed out when this happened? Or if something like that. And they'll be honest, right? If they're a real
Right.
friend, they'll be like, oh,
Right.
you stress ball. You used to be a stress ball about that.
Yes.
So that's
Yeah.
one way.
It's so much fun to have those realizations of yourself when you're like, hey, wait a second, this isn't bugging me like it used to bug me. And there's something to be said for being more grounded and more peaceful and to not allow things to bug you. And I think, when you are inherently compassionate and even empathetic, the compassion is the allowance of someone else's stuff to just be what that is and feel for them. The empathy is actually really feeling into it and where you feel the pain. And when you have those two traits, it can be really easy to get wound up quickly, really. And it's
Big time.
right, because you're like, I feel all that. You feel the angst, you feel the something or another. And the compassion, is actually the grounded, peaceful of that feeling. Does that make sense?
It totally does. And a lot of the work that we've been doing in these episodes has been to create more of a grounded foundation, because
Yep.
if you have that grounded foundation, then instead of it's like the roots of the tree. Instead of being so worried about this little leaf that's on the edge, right? And think about that leaf breaking off or whatever, or someone rips it off the tree. You're not worried about those little leaves. You've got this amazingly grounded, rooted system, and it makes all those little things not feel so big. And
Right.
so there's two ways I think that we've really approached these episodes, and it's giving real time things that we can do, right? Like asking for help. We talked about like how you can just add it in a little bit more in your life, right? Asking friends for help kind of thing. And in times when you wouldn't, and seeing how that goes. Those are little action items, right? But
Mhm.
then we would also anchor in during these episodes of more grounded topics of finding your inner truth and those kinds of things. That's really where it comes from. So you need both as you're working through things. You need to be focusing on building the roots, right? But then along the way, you're gonna need little reminders or little action or little task items that you can make sure that you have a fallback to react until your roots are big enough to where you just trust that whatever
Right.
happens, you got it.
Right. Right. Where you have that deep knowing. And that's the importance of the anchoring, is that you will build into that deep knowing. You said that really, really beautifully. I think that the using the idea that love is greater than fear in all that we do allows that grounded nature to become more of your second nature. You know how they say, oh, that's just second nature. Well, second nature is the subconscious habit. And as we work through all the different, topics we've talked about, I love the why in July, when we did all the whys in July, and why have a why and why your why might change. And
I loved it too.
it's one of the pieces to understand what you're doing moving forward and why, but then letting go of the outcome and the interweaving of these things to let life flow. And the more you let life flow, the more grounded you'll become and the deeper those roots get. And yeah, so I'm still a little baffled that we've had 30 episodes and that we've talked about so many major pieces to life, everyday life, healing in the moments of everyday life, and even just navigating it, that it sometimes I get a little speechless.
Absolutely. And that's okay. It's good. It's yeah. And thinking back on this season, I thought maybe we could also reflect on some of the topics that we really, really enjoyed. And I remember one, we talked about this imposter syndrome, and that's so it brings in so many topics. That was probably one of my favorite topics that we talked about. Although it's really hard for me to pick a favorite, because then I also I love the don't let fear be in control. I love the finding your inner truth. There's so many.
I know. And, Kelsey, it's like, there's building blocks as well, creating awareness and how to create awareness. There are definitely building blocks to getting to a place of that grounded trust. And one of the things that I hope that we've done a good job of walking through is that you can start wherever you are. So you can start right where you are, wherever that is, to start creating awareness and knowing that there's an intention that you're setting and what you want to accomplish. We've talked about the awareness and the setting of the intentions, but start where you are, wherever you are. And I really hope that that's a message that, people have taken away from these first 30 episodes.
I know. And one of the neat things that we talked about too is integrating this idea of not judging yourself. I think that is like the most common thing that we do. And it is not useful. It is simply wasted thought process and energy. I can't think of it. There are ways that you can critique yourself without judging yourself. And
Yes.
as you become more aware, right? I mean, even the task that I task everyone with this is take a pen and a piece of paper, pencil, whatever you like to write with, crayon, and write down a few things, and I would say choose specific things that have happened and how you reacted, and something you can relate it to how you thought and how you reacted before. And you might need a friend to help you with this, of how you did it before. That idea of how you have started to change will really anchor in this idea of, I am making progress.
Yes.
And it's not I have to spend 3 hours a day on this. It can simply be 30 seconds a day of just simple awareness and saying, no, I'm not going to judge myself on this. I am going to trust that I'm trying my best, or I'm doing my best. And even that like small amount of work adds up over time. It's not I'm going to do this 1 hour a week on Fridays with Joe and Kelsey. No, it's all the work you guys do outside of this. It's all those 1 minute, 30-second little blips in your life, right? Consistently.
Right. Because that's how our brain will rewire itself. And we have the ability to do that. And yeah, I really appreciate when someone has that awareness about themselves and can feel the difference. We talked a lot about emotions and feeling the emotions flowing through us, like feel those emotions. And when you can really identify with, I love how you bring in doing something different, reacting or responding differently to something that may have completely set you off even 6 months ago. And now you're like, yeah, not such a big deal. Or if it is a big deal, I could do it from a calmer place. I can respond instead of react and, feel all tense and cranky. And I think that the opportunity to have that awareness in any given moment is progress. It's progress. And we
Absolutely.
should celebrate that. And I am shoulding us, because we should always celebrate something that we've done that makes us feel calmer, more loved. We love ourselves more joyful. Always celebrate those moments. And that's the other piece of anchoring and integrating, is taking time
Absolutely.
to, yeah, have gratitude for it all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this idea that you just brought up, of this idea of still having the emotions flowing through us. One thing I've noticed personally is, as I work on becoming more solid within, I find that the number of emotions I can have at the same time is expanding. I can
Mm,
still be compassionate and caring, as well as really pissed off at someone because they were irritating. And it sounds weird, but there's this idea of hope that I have that we've talked a lot about too. And
yeah.
by expanding the reason I think my emotions can expand is because I let them flow. I don't have anything clogging up my pipes now.
Right.
And when I do that, I can be more anchored and secure in my true self, which is extremely compassionate, extremely
Oh,
empathetic.
you sure are.
And I can feel that, and also be unhappy with the way that someone did something, and stand in a compassionate way, which something we've talked a lot about, love over fear. When I
Mhm.
can react from a place of love, that always feels much better than reacting from a place of fear. And I really believe it has to do with my ability now to be better, not perfect. I'll never be perfect, better at living in the present moment, allowing my emotions to flow, talking to myself like, hey, how do you feel about that thing? I'm really pissed off. Cool. That makes sense. Validate my feelings. I validate them all the time so that they're flowing, so that I can make sure that I continue to react from my true self, which is compassionate, empathetic, with love. And it just feels good. It feels so good to be pissed off at someone and calm at the same time. It's the coolest
And
feeling.
yeah, you know what's so interesting is one of the topics that we haven't explored yet in season one, that I'm sure we will in season two, is the idea of safety. And what you just described is
Ooh.
that you are safe in the moment of being irritated from a grounded place, because you know things are okay. There's this sense of safety that comes with that. And when we don't feel safe, when we feel like things are falling apart and we're not safe, is when we allow emotions to get constricted, and we're like, and don't respond like you did this morning with the thing that happened 4 minutes before we went live, right? So
They
I
feel so bad. And I'm laughing. I'm
I,
laughing
I
because,
know.
shit happens in life. And maybe it's because I've had so much shit happen that it takes it takes a lot to really, really upset me with something like that. Now, there are other things that I realize as I this is another topic I want to bring up in this idea of anchoring. One thing I've also noticed, so this thing that happened earlier, it was a materialistic item. Someone ran into something, right? It's easy for me to react from a really good place of love, compassion, be it maybe a little irritated. Anyone would be, right? And know that it'll be fine. It's just a thing. I have a very difficult time with interpersonal relationships. And I think we can all relate to that. That's harder. And you go from coworker, that's not as bad. You start to get to friendship, right? And you get to romantic relationships. And I find those to be the most difficult. And it's fun to think about, and I think it's fun to think about how you react and respond to certain issues within those areas. And for me, I do have weaknesses depending on the type of relationship. Romantic relationships are more difficult for me, and that takes more energy for me to remain grounded.
Yeah.
And so it's this idea
Yes.
that maybe something to explore for you as well, because it's
Yes.
something I am. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, gosh, the many conversations that have happened over the course of time, since we've started this and, intermingled with what we're doing here with Lyrical Lessons for Life. And then just outside of that, communication is so key. And we had that, I think we did an episode on communication and how important it is. And that when we forget to communicate with someone that we know really well, i.e., could be a romantic relationship or a really dear friend, when we forget to communicate, we make all kinds of assumptions about what they're thinking and right, what's going on. And when we forget to ask, the assumptions and the stories we tell ourselves can get really foggy. It can make everything all cloudy. And we had a conversation about assumptions too, and how tricky they can be. And I know that relationships as a whole, and including the one with our own selves, are, they need tending and nurturing and care and love. Love is greater than fear, always in those cases, because then we won't make assumptions. We just, we won't. And so that was one of my favorite conversations that we had. But
absolutely. And when I think about it, as I brought this up, this just came to me. And as you were talking about these relationships, including the one we have with ourselves, I would argue that the one you have with yourself is the perfect place to gain those training wheels for relationships with other people, because at least you have some control. I mean, I don't know if control is the right word, but it's a little easier to work on it there, because it's the thoughts that are in your brain, right? What's your ego telling you? And you can start to unravel that. But when it's with another person, you have no idea what's going on in their brain. No. And you have no idea if they're communicating
right,
truthfully or openly or being vulnerable, or if they're making assumptions. There's so many things that are way outside of your control. And so this idea of really I focus a lot of energy on my internal talk and what's going on with my mind, my ego, my thought process, and all that, because that's the only thing that I can create some foundation within, and it's making it easier with my other relationships.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you have no idea what's going on in their head, especially if they aren't very good at communicating. And that can make it tough.
Right. It can make it tough. And that's why you have to stay curious. And I know that we talked about staying
curious. We sure did.
Yeah, we did. Right. So staying curious allows you to stay really connected, to the person. And the I'm curious why question that you can ask somebody. I'm curious why you would think that. I'm curious why you would say that. I'm curious what prompted that. All of those things don't just open the door to the communication, but they open the door to how much you care, for the other person, and wanting the best out of that relationship and in those moments.
And the way you just said it was from a very grounded place. There was no judgment in the way you said it.
Oh, right.
Which is, and the only way you could say it like that is because you don't operate from a judge kind of standpoint.
Right. Or worry about the fear.
Right. Isn't this so interesting? You just said something of how to connect with someone else, and you utilized a foundation that you grew from yourself. And so this idea of our relationship with ourselves, we grow. We can continue to grow inside by being curious about other people, other relationships. And that can cause us to further grow inside. It's so connected.
Oh, it is. And you know what? You just reminded me that when we do that, we allow ourselves to create the boundaries that we need in order to honor ourselves and our truth, knowing that sometimes people that we've had longstanding relationships with, the relationship doesn't serve us as it used to because we're growing and changing and transforming. And that creating the boundary, as you just described, when you're trying to relate to the other person, maybe it's not coming back the way you need it to for your own truth, is okay. The boundary is self-love.
Correct. And it's an elusive boundary. We've
Yeah.
talked about boundaries. We've talked about setting it based out of fear or based out of love. And sometimes, and we've talked about, there are some situations where you are acting upon fear, and that's the only way, that's the only thing you have. And you know, maybe it's toxic, something you need to get out of. And it's not ideal, but sometimes you have to. I know I've made decisions based out of fear, and it was necessary. Now, as you make those decisions and you create boundaries, this idea of boundaries, as you grow and get more centered and more solid, my boundaries are just, I'm realizing I have boundaries that just are. There are no walls with the boundary. There is a hope that the boundary doesn't need to be there. There isn't much they can do to knock me off of where I'm at. And if they come back, I just realize it's still not in alignment. It's not vibrating at the same frequency I need it to vibrate in. And then there's no big decision. It just is. It just is. And it isn't going to work. Or, it's the boundaries become, they are no longer walls. They are no longer hard stops. They are simply gentle releases. I was talking to a friend of mine, Charlotte, and we were talking about this idea of gentle releases. And it's almost as if you're operating on some clouds, but you have these big ass roots grounded so deeply in yourself, but then can operate in a freer form, peaceful, content form. It's really cool.
It is really cool. And so I have a friend, she has listened to us a lot. Her name is Carrie, and she loves to do it is what it is thing sometimes. And I've always given her crap because I'm like, it is what it is with a period at the end of it? Or is it with a ... And what I just heard you say is that the boundary, the gentle release, allows it is what it is that causes us to go there and create the boundary with a ...
Yes.
Instead of a hard period. Now, we do definitely have situations where there needs to be a period at the end of that. And even when there is a period at the end of that, the idea would be to never give up hope. That hope actually will allow you to stay grounded in the idea that things change and things can change for the other person too. And it doesn't mean that you need to open the door back up and say, my boundary's gone, here, come back. No, you get to honor it, in a gentle, releasing kind of way where you stay curious. Maybe there's, whatever happens down the road will happen, but you don't get to control because you're letting go and gently releasing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that idea of setting the boundary and putting a period, we have talked about situations where you might need to put a period on it. And I know I've done that. And I look back, and as long as we don't judge ourselves and we just say, that was all I could do in order to remove myself from that. And it wasn't good. So sometimes you just have to. And then eventually you'll get what you're talking about, which is hope. Maybe they'll change. Maybe they'll improve. It doesn't mean that you said, we're opening the floodgate, come on back. No, sometimes we have to use, I call it painting something black or white, having something good or bad. And sometimes we need to introduce that into our brain because we don't have a secure enough foundation with that situation to realize it's really not good for us, or we have more growth we need to do. And that thing is really creating poison within our life. And sometimes you have to paint it good or bad. So your brain says, cool, wall. And with the wall, it's a false protection and you do need it then, but eventually you'll say, I don't need it anymore.
Right.
And then you can start to be curious, and eventually the period will turn into a ... if you keep growing. I really believe that.
I do too. One of my other as we're talking about relationships and this idea, one of my other episode favorites, they're all my favorites. So I guess I shouldn't even.
I know
they are. They're just so I was just really happy that we did what we did in the last, however long it's been, 30 episodes, but was leaving a toxic relationship. And that really what hit me while we were having the conversation. And I mean, I know this because it's part of the work that I do and in my own experiences, that toxicity has a spectrum, that almost everything has a spectrum. There's the far end and then the other far end and then everything in the middle. And that the idea of toxicity in a relationship is anything that just doesn't serve you anymore. And any relationship that we encounter can come to a point of completion when it doesn't serve you anymore. And that boundaries and self-love inside of that are the only way to honor the truth that you're really rediscovering, the truth that you came here with. And so that episode really, it meant a lot to me as it confirmed some of the things that I know and I've been through. And just having the conversation with you allowed it to go deeper into the anchoring and the integrating in a deep knowing of how I'm going to move forward. So
absolutely. And this idea of when we know that we've healed from something and then we discuss it again, it's really fun to think about how these episodes have touched on things that we probably all have thought about in some regard and have had these, I should let go of the outcome of this. I know that I'll do my best and that's all I can do. It's so nice to have a reminder. It really is. And that reminder is going to feel different as you continue to grow. I have some podcasts I listen to and I can listen to the same podcast, many times and glean something from it that I didn't hear the same way before. And so one of the things that Joe and I are working on currently is we are putting together a Lyrical Lessons for Life Spotify playlist and it'll be on iTunes and anywhere you can get podcasts. And we are currently putting those episodes into, we're editing the episodes right now. And we're very excited to share that with you. And this idea of having it just audio, we were laughing about this. When you have it just audio, sometimes you do other things, like you'll go for a walk and such. And we laughed that with YouTube videos, we don't normally have them play while we're going for a walk or commuting or whatever it is. And so we were laughing that if the video is present, technically it still has all the same information, but there's something a little different with the podcast.
Yeah.
So we want to offer that to everyone. So we are currently working on that, which is part of the impetus of us taking a little pause so we can work on that and create something for you guys to have, and something and some of your names are in it. We're going to keep some of that. If Eitan said something, you're going to hear your name, and bringing up those topics that you have helped us as we roll through these episodes and these ideas. And so we're really excited about creating that and putting that online so we all have something we can go back and listen to and might hear something a little different the next time we hear it.
Well, and it's so fun because you have new experiences in between the first time you listen to it and the second time you listen to it. And often we may hear an idea or a concept and think, yeah, okay, that's great. Doesn't really work for me right now. And all of a sudden you hear it again after 3 experiences later, and you're thinking to yourself, now I get it. Now I understand what they meant, or why Kelsey said that, or why Joe said this. And those are the moments, because I too love listening to podcasts for additional information, or I'll listen to it the first time through, and then I'll get my pen and paper and listen to it a second time through and take notes and, really engage with it that way, which is what we're hoping will come from podcast audio only experiences moving forward. So I can really appreciate this pause that we're taking so that we can bring that to you guys differently. Yeah. I am.
Absolutely. So I'm going to share my screen, and then I'll share what the cover album art of the podcast will look like.
Oh, it's so exciting. This is
So
so
there
cool.
it is. Lyrical Lessons for Life. Can you tell Joe and I like each other a whole lot? I love this lady.
It's so much fun. We took, I don't know, 150 pictures that day in 3 different outfits. And yeah, we had so much fun doing this. And Kelsey, this is beautiful. Thank you
Yeah.
for doing this.
So this will be our season 1.
Yay!
This, and then, oh, and we wanted to invite you to get updates for it. So on our website, Joe just added a sign up, a subscribe button. So let's share are you able to share that into the YouTube chat, the website?
Oh, sure.
Great.
Let me
So what you'll
grab
do is
that.
what you'll do is you'll click on the website and then just scroll a little bit and a pop-up will come up and you can put your name and email in. And as we work on these episodes, and I don't know the time frame, maybe about a month from now, we'll have an updated email where we send you something of when it is online. And then we'll just start to release them weekly after we get a good handful of them finished and ready to go. And of course, I'm writing the music for the intro because every good podcast needs to have a little bit of a musical intro, especially ours, right?
That's
And
great.
so I have some calming piano music that I put in there, and I think the whole point of this is that it's something that you can listen to as a reminder, and then it's also something you can easily share with other people that you know. So through your interactions with people, you might find that you want to share an episode with them, and the goal is just to help and be present and be around for anyone else going through similar things that we've gone through. All of us as a collective have gone through.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I I know both Kelsey and I appreciate your interaction and the feedback and the song ideas and the things that come into play throughout each episode. So as we continue to update or engage in the Facebook group, share, please stay in touch with us that way as well. If something comes up and you want to potentially hear Kelsey cover a song and have a little story behind that, definitely share that with us as well. So
Absolutely. And for anyone just listening in and not able to see the chat, it's lyricallessonsforlife.com, lyricallessonsforlife.com. And so we're going to gear up for season 2. Let us know if there's some topics
yes,
that you want to talk about for season 2. We're going to be editing these things. We are not going away completely. We might do a couple little live stream pop-ups as we work on some things. We are not gone. We are actively pushing forward. Another thing we are doing is a workbook. And so within these 30 episodes, there's so many topics that we can work through and look at lyrics with. And so we want to provide you guys something that you can work on. And it's one of those things that it doesn't matter if you already listened to the 30 episodes, you're going to get something out of it because it matters where you are at right now. And there's always more levels to grow. So we are also working on a workbook. If you're on my Patreon page, I've already shared the first week of the workbook for the $10 and up tier on my Patreon page. So if you're interested, you can go there. Or you can wait just a bit as we work on it. And we'd like to create a physical workbook for you as well as electronic. And so make sure you sign up for the email so we can let you know when that is ready to go.
That is perfect. Perfect. And, even if there's a topic, hey, week 4, we want you to expand on week 4. Can you do more with that? Just let us know that, as we move forward, and we will be able to add new journaling prompts and new ideas into the additional workbook pieces that come alive as we keep moving forward. So I want to thank those of you that have been with us every week, almost every week. It means the world to both Kelsey and I. And Mary Beth, thank you for seeing the flow of the conversation that we're having, and really allowing Kelsey and I to work through some things at the same time, because, that's what we're doing. We're doing this for you guys. We're doing this for each other and ourselves. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And Aton, I can't wait to see you on Saturday. This is my last show in Madison, Wisconsin that I have booked, I believe. It's this Saturday at the High Noon Saloon. And I'm looking forward to seeing you, Aton, and anyone else who's there. Even if I don't know you, come up and let me know if you listen to Lyrical Lessons for
Well,
Life.
I'll be there. I'll be there too. And Aton, I can't wait to meet you. Yes.
Oh my gosh, fantastic.
Surprise you and tell you we were coming, but yes, we'll be there. Along with, Jen and Kim and some of the rest of the tribe. So,
really fantastic. I'm so excited.
Yeah. I know. Me too.
We're going to have so much fun. Oh, Aton, let's do this. We're going to have so much fun.
Yes, it's going to be a blast. Awesome. Well, Kelsey, thank you for your heart and your music and your interpretation and your talent and your love. I don't know where I'd be without you.
Thank you for your gorgeous light that continues to shine. You have given us words to connect these ideas and thoughts. And I love our back and forth and our flow and our ability to have a conversation and invite others into it. I know myself that I've grown tons from doing this, and talking about these topics with you has been, as someone else put, my weekly therapy. Mm-hmm. Yes. So thank you for being you. And I feel so appreciated by you for me being me. And that's what is so cool. We get to share with everyone as well. So
I know it.
Yeah. And thank you everyone for all the comments and all of the
vulnerability.
All of your comments. Yeah, has pushed me as well. And we've really grown something cool. And I'm really grateful to be part of it.
Absolutely am too. And yeah, so season 2, here we come.
Woo!
I know. Love and light to everybody. And oh my gosh, Charlotte, shine on. I was literally, oh, wow. Okay, I hope you're coming tomorrow, Charlotte, because shine on was literally just coming out of my mouth. And wow. Yep. Hello, synchronicity.
Shine on. Oh. Shine on, everybody. And we will see you soon for sure.
Awesome.
Take